Drop it! Drop the weapon right now!
Officer, that is not a weapon. It's a scientific instrument. I'm a city contractor.
I don't care what you call it! You don't belong here. Drop it!
If I drop it, you'll destroy protected city property. Please, just look at the permit.
Last warning, get away from the tree you're going.
It was a crisp, overcast Tuesday morning in October 2024 in the historic and wealthy neighborhood of Brattle Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The leaves were turning a brilliant shade of crimson and gold, framing the multi-million-dollar colonial mansions that lined the road. Dr. Marcus Sterling, a 62-year-old black man with graying temples and a posture of quiet dignity, was standing at the base of a massive 300-year-old copper beech tree. He was wearing a high-visibility vest over a tweed jacket, holding a sophisticated piece of scientific equipment that looked to the uneducated eye vaguely like a large power drill. Marcus was not a vandal. He was not a threat. He was one of the country's leading arborists, hired specifically by the Cambridge Historical Commission to save this legendary tree from a fungal infection. But none of his credentials, his contracts, or the clearly marked tree preservation cones he had set up mattered to the neighbor watching from the window across the street. And they certainly didn't matter to the aggressive police officer who was currently leveling a firearm at Marcus's chest. Before we unravel the rest of this harrowing story, I have to ask, where are you watching from? Please drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. This story exposes a terrifying reality about assumption and authority, and we need your help to spread the truth. Marcus was a man of science. He understood the slow, silent language of trees better than he understood the chaotic noise of people. He had spent 40 years studying urban forestry. He had written 3 textbooks. He was soft-spoken, methodical, and deeply respectful of the living history he worked to preserve. He had arrived at the site at 7:30 a.m., notified the city clerk, set up his safety perimeter, and began the delicate process of drilling micro-resistance holes to map the decay inside the trunk. It was surgical work. Across the street lived Mr. Arthur Pemsley. Arthur was a 70-year-old retired investment banker who spent his days monitoring the street from his second-floor study. He was the head of the neighborhood watch, a position he treated with the gravity of a military command. Arthur did not like change. He did not like strangers, and he specifically did not like seeing a black man with a power tool drilling into the neighborhood's oldest tree. Arthur didn't see a scientist. He saw a worker he didn't recognize destroying property that Arthur felt he personally owned. At 9:15 a.m., Arthur picked up his phone. He didn't call the non-emergency line to check for permits. He dialed 911. The recording of this call would later become a centerpiece of a federal civil rights trial. 911, what is your emergency? Yes, this is Arthur Pemsley at 105 Brattle. There is a man attacking the copper beech tree. He has a massive drill. He's destroying it. He looks like he's on drugs or something very erratic. Sir, is he threatening anyone? He's threatening the neighborhood. He's armed with a large weapon. It looks like a modified rifle or a heavy drill. You need to send the police before he takes the whole tree down. He definitely doesn't belong here. Arthur omitted the safety cones. He omitted the high-visibility vest. He omitted the calm, surgical precision of Marcus's movements. He painted a picture of a violent maniac because he knew that was the only way to get a swarm of police to the scene instantly. Within 6 minutes, the peace of the morning was shattered. Officer Derek Thorne, a 30-year-old transfer to the Cambridge PD with a reputation for being tactical and high intensity, jumped the curb with his cruiser. He didn't park. He deployed. He exited the vehicle with his hand already on his service weapon. Marcus was focused on the digital readout of the resistograph. He was wearing noise-canceling headphones to monitor the acoustic feedback of the wood. He didn't hear the siren chirp. The first thing he noticed was the reflection of blue lights on the screen of his device. He turned slowly, expecting perhaps a curious resident asking about the tree's health. Instead, he faced Officer Thorne, who was screaming commands that were muffled by the headphones. Marcus saw the gun. His heart stopped. He immediately remembered the lessons he had taught his own sons. Move slowly. Hands visible. Do not run. Marcus slowly reached up and pulled his headphones down around his neck. Drop the weapon. Drop it now. Thorne screamed, his face contorted with adrenaline. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice trembling but projecting well, "this is not a weapon. This is a scientific instrument. I am Dr. Marcus Sterling. I am working for the Historical Commission." "I said drop it." Thorne advanced, closing the distance rapidly. "I cannot drop it," Marcus said, clutching the device. "The needle is embedded in the tree. If I drop it, the needle will snap and damage the heartwood. Please let me retract the bit." Thorne didn't hear scientific explanation. He heard refusal to comply. He holstered his gun and drew his taser. "Step away or you're going to get tased." Marcus raised his hands, stepping back as far as the cord would allow. Okay. I am stepping back. Please do not touch the equipment. It is calibrated." Thorne rushed in. He didn't look at the device. He grabbed Marcus by the lapels of his tweed jacket and threw him backward. Marcus stumbled over the uneven root system of the tree and fell hard onto the cobblestone sidewalk. His glasses flew off his face, skittering across the pavement. "On your stomach, hands behind your back," Thorne shouted, kneeling on Marcus's back. "I have a bad hip." Marcus gasped, pain shooting through his leg. "Please, officer, check my permit. It is in my front pocket. My ID is in my wallet. You are making a mistake. You're under arrest for destruction of property, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest," Thorne announced, ratcheting the handcuffs on so tight that Marcus lost feeling in his fingers immediately. By now, a second cruiser had arrived. Officer Sarah Jenkins, a rookie who had joined the force to make a difference, stepped out. She saw the scene: an elderly man in a tweed jacket, handcuffed, face down in the dirt, and her partner standing over him like a big game hunter. She also saw the weapon. It was clearly a piece of yellow and black industrial testing equipment labeled IML Resi PD. "Derek," Jenkins said, rushing over. "Derek, hold on. That's not a gun. Look at it." "He was drilling into the tree, Sarah. He wouldn't drop it. Pemsley called it in as a guy with a rifle." Thorne panted, adrenaline still flooding his system. "It's a resistograph," Marcus whispered from the ground, his cheek pressed against the cold stones. "It measures wood density. Please get my glasses. I can't see." Jenkins picked up the glasses. One lens was cracked. She looked at the safety cones surrounding the tree. She looked at the city permit taped to the side of Marcus's equipment case. "Derek, get him up," Jenkins said, her voice sharp. "He has a permit right here. This is a city contractor." "I don't care if he's the Pope," Thorne snapped. "He failed to comply. We're taking him in. We'll sort it out at the station." They hauled Marcus to his feet. He was dizzy. His hip was throbbing with a dull, sickening ache. Thorne marched him to the cruiser and shoved him into the back seat. As they slammed the door, Marcus saw Arthur Pemsley standing on his front porch, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Arthur nodded at Officer Thorne, a silent gesture of thank you for taking out the trash. But there was another witness. In the third-floor apartment of the building next to the tree lived Leo Golding, a 24-year-old law student at Harvard. Leo had been studying for torts class when he heard the shouting. He had gone to the window and filmed the entire interaction on his iPhone 15 in 4K resolution. He recorded Thorne pointing a gun at a confused scientist. He recorded Marcus pleading to save the equipment. He recorded the brutal takedown. And he recorded Pemsley's smug nod. Leo didn't just record it. He recognized Marcus. Dr. Sterling had given a guest lecture on environmental law and urban planning at the university just 2 weeks prior. Leo knew exactly who was in the back of that car. As Thorne and Jenkins prepared to drive away, a black Audi SUV screeched to a halt, blocking the police cruiser's path. The driver door flew open and a woman stepped out. She was dressed in a power suit that cost more than Thorne's annual salary. It was Eleanor Vance, the president of the university and the chairwoman of the Cambridge Historical Commission. She had been on her way to a board meeting when she saw the commotion involving the very tree she had fought to save. Eleanor Vance was a woman who ate politicians for breakfast. She walked straight up to Officer Thorne's window and slammed her hand on the glass. "Open this window, now." Thorne rolled it down, annoyed. "Ma'am, move your vehicle. This is an active police operation." "Who do you have in the back of that car?" Eleanor demanded. "That's none of your business. We apprehended a vandal destroying the Copper Beach." "A vandal?" Eleanor looked at the tree, seeing the expensive resistograph still sticking out of the trunk. She looked into the back seat and saw Marcus disheveled and bleeding from a scrape on his forehead. "You idiot," Eleanor whispered. Then she shouted, "That is Dr. Marcus Sterling. He is the foremost dendrologist in North America. I hired him. He is saving that tree and you just assaulted him." Thorne blinked. He refused to drop the drill. "It is a $20,000 scientific instrument," Eleanor screamed. "Get him out of there immediately. I am calling the police commissioner and then I am calling the mayor. In that order." Thorne looked at Jenkins. Jenkins looked terrified. "Derek, uncuff him, now!" Thorne got out and opened the back door. He pulled Marcus out. "Look, we're going to release you, but you need to understand when an officer gives a command, save your speech." Marcus said, his voice icy calm despite the pain. "I want your badge number, I want your name, and I want to know who called this in." "We can't release caller info," Thorne muttered, unlocking the cuffs. "I know who called it in," Leo Golding shouted from his third-floor window. "It was Pemsley. I heard him on his balcony, and I got the whole arrest on video. Dr. Sterling, I'm sending it to you right now." Thorne looked up in the window. The color drained from his face. He realized the narrative he was planning to write in his report, subject was aggressive, lunged with drill, was dead on arrival. Marcus rubbed his wrists. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He walked over to his equipment. He checked the needle. It was bent. The sensors were misaligned. The machine was ruined. "You owe the university $20,000, Marcus said to Thorne without looking at him. "And you owe me a new pair of glasses." Marcus refused medical attention from the police but allowed Eleanor to drive him to Mount Auburn Hospital. His hip wasn't broken, but he had severe bruising and a torn labrum that would require months of physical therapy. The aftermath was not a quiet internal investigation. It was a firestorm. Leo Golding uploaded the video to TikTok and Twitter with the caption, "Cambridge PD assaults world-renowned scientist for saving a tree. #Justice for Dr. Sterling." Within 4 hours, it had 3 million views. The contrast between the gentle, tweed-wearing professor and the hyper-aggressive cop was too stark to ignore. The next morning, Marcus Sterling didn't just file a complaint. He hired a legal team that specialized in civil rights and excessive force. They filed a federal lawsuit against the City of Cambridge officer Derek Thorne, and in a rare move, Arthur Pemsley for malicious prosecution and abuse of process. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was brutal for the defense. Officer Thorne's file was opened. It revealed a pattern of behavior that the department had ignored. He had 5 prior complaints for escalating nonviolent situations. He had been transferred from his previous precinct for conduct unbecoming. The city had put a ticking time bomb on the street, and it had finally exploded. But the real revelation came from Arthur Pemsley. During his deposition, Marcus's lawyer grilled him. "Mr. Pemsley, you stated on the 911 call that the suspect had a rifle-like weapon. Did you truly believe a yellow measuring tool was a rifle?" "It looked dangerous," Pemsley stammered. "He didn't belong there. Dr. Sterling has worked in Cambridge for 40 years. He was wearing a high-vis vest. There were cones. What exactly about him didn't belong?" Pemsley remained silent. He couldn't say the truth without admitting to racial bias. "Is it true, Mr. Pemsley, that you have called the police on 3 other black municipal workers in the last 2 years? A water meter reader, a mail carrier, and a surveyor." The records proved he had. Arthur Pemsley wasn't a concerned citizen. He was a serial harasser who used the police as his personal security force to keep his neighborhood pure. The trial never happened. The city knew they would lose. They knew a jury watching Leo's video would award Marcus whatever he asked for. The settlement was historic. The city of Cambridge agreed to pay Dr. Marcus Sterling $3.5 million. But Marcus, being a man of principle, had specific non-monetary demands included in the settlement. Termination officer Derek Thorne was fired immediately. His actions were deemed grossly negligent, stripping him of qualified immunity protections in the civil suit. Policy change. The Sterling Protocol was implemented. It required 911 dispatchers to ask specific clarifying questions when callers reported suspicious persons who were working wearing uniforms or in high-vis gear. It also required officers to engage in distance verification, checking permits and vehicles before closing distance with weapons drawn. Community service. Arthur Pemsley was not part of the city settlement, but he settled his personal lawsuit with Marcus separately. To avoid bankruptcy, Pemsley had to issue a public apology and pay a significant sum, which Marcus donated entirely to the Urban Forestry Scholarship for minority students. Restoration. The city had to pay for the full restoration of the copper beech tree, using Marcus's specific treatment plan, and install a plaque at the base of the tree honoring the work of urban scientists. Officer Thorne tried to fight his termination through the police union. He argued he was following training regarding unknown weapons. The arbitration board watched the video. They heard Eleanor Vance's testimony. They upheld the firing. Thorne was decertified. He moved back to his hometown in a different state and took a job in private security, forever barred from holding a badge. Arthur Pemsley became a pariah. The neighborhood he tried so hard to protect turned on him. His neighbors, appalled by the video and the revelation of his serial 911 calls, stopped inviting him to events. He was removed as head of the neighborhood watch. He eventually sold his house and moved to a gated community in Florida, where he complained to anyone who would listen about how the world had gone crazy. Dr. Marcus Sterling recovered from his injuries, though he walked with a cane for a year. He used the settlement money to build a state-of-the-art research lab at the university. He continued to lecture, often starting his classes by showing the video of his arrest. Science, he would tell his students, requires observation. You must look at what is actually there, not what you expect to see. That officer failed because he stopped observing and started assuming. In science, that leads to bad data. In life, it leads to injustice. The copper beech tree survived. The treatment Marcus administered once he got new equipment worked. The tree flourished, its deep purple leaves shading the street for another generation. 1 year later, Marcus returned to the tree for a follow-up inspection. He was nervous. The trauma of that day still lingered. He set up his cones. He put on his vest. A patrol car rolled up. Marcus stiffened his hand, gripping his new resistograph. The car stopped. A young officer stepped out. It was Sarah Jenkins, the rookie who had tried to stop Thorne. She smiled. "Good morning, Dr. Sterling," she said respectfully. "I see you're checking on the patient. Do you need me to block traffic for you so you have more room, sir?" Marcus breathed out. "Thank you, officer. That would be appreciated." She turned on her lights not to detain him, but to protect him, and Marcus went back to work. So what is the valuable lesson we must take away from this story? The lesson is the danger of willful ignorance and the power of expertise. Officer Thorne and neighbor Arthur Pemsley both suffered from a dangerous condition they refused to see the context. They saw what their bias told them to see, a threat, rather than what was objectively in front of them, a professional doing a job. Pemsley's ignorance was malicious. Thorne's was tactical. Both were destructive. They ignored the safety cones, the vest, and the calm demeanor because those facts contradicted the narrative of danger they had already decided upon. On the other hand, Dr. Sterling demonstrates that true authority is quiet. He did not need to scream or posture. His authority came from his knowledge, his permit, and his truth. While he was physically overpowered in the moment, his expertise and his standing in the community ultimately completely dismantled the brute force used against him. For the audience, the takeaway is critical context matters. When we see something we don't understand, our first instinct should be curiosity, not condemnation. If Thorne had taken 10 seconds to look at the machine or read the permit or listen to the doctor, he would still have a career. If Pemsley had walked across the street to ask, "What are you doing?" instead of calling 911, he would still have his dignity. We must also recognize the importance of bystander intervention. Leo Golding. The student who filmed the encounter changed the course of history for Marcus. Without that video, it would have been the word of a black man against a police officer. Leo's action proves that we all have a role to play in justice. If you see something wrong, document it. Your phone can be a shield for someone else's life. In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, be like Dr. Sterling, patient, precise, and grounded in the truth. And if you are ever in a position of power, be like Eleanor Vance, use your privilege to demand accountability for those who cannot. The copper beech tree still stands today, a living monument to the fact that sometimes the roots of truth run deeper than the rot of prejudice. Thank you for reading. Stay safe, stay observant, and always respect the evidence of your own eyes over the fears in your head.